Ambassador Kethvani stood at the observation deck of her flagship, the Eternal Wisdom, and watched the blue planet grow larger in the view screen. She had done this many times before. In her 300 years of service to the Valorian Collective, she had visited more than 200 worlds and brought them all under the gentle guidance of her people. Some had resisted at first. All had eventually accepted the truth that the Collective knew best. Earth would be no different. "Ambassador, we are entering high orbit," announced her navigation officer, a young male named Teverus, who had served under her for only 50 years. He was still eager, still excited by first contact missions. Kethvani remembered feeling that way once, long ago. "Very good," she said, keeping her voice calm and professional. Signal the fleet to take standard intimidation positions. I want our ships visible from every major population center on the daylight side." The order went out, and 12 massive vessels began to move. The Valorian survey fleet was not a military force in the traditional sense. They carried weapons, of course, but their true power lay in their size and their technology. When a primitive species looked up and saw ships that could block out the sun, they understood their place in the universe very quickly. Kethvani turned to her science officer, an elderly female named Mothra, who had been with her since the beginning. "What do our latest scans tell us about the inhabitants?" Mothra pulled up the data on her console. "They call themselves humans, carbon-based life forms, bilateral symmetry, warm-blooded. They have spread across most of their planet's landmasses and have a population of approximately 8 billion individuals." 8 billion, Kethvani repeated. "That is a large number for a single world. They must be putting great strain on their resources." "Indeed, Ambassador, our probes detected significant environmental degradation. Rising temperatures, polluted waters, destroyed forests. At their current rate of consumption, they will face serious problems within a few of their generations." This was not unusual. Most primitive species went through a period of reckless growth before they learned to manage their worlds properly. The Collective's intervention usually came just in time to prevent complete ecological collapse. It was one of the many services they provided to younger civilizations. "And but what about their technology?" Kethvani asked. Mothra made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Primitive, Ambassador. They have only recently developed nuclear fission, and they use it primarily for weapons rather than power generation. Their space program is limited to their immediate planetary system, and they have only sent crude robotic probes to their neighboring worlds. Their fastest vessels would take thousands of years to reach even the nearest star." "Any signs of unified government?" "None. They are divided into approximately 200 separate political units, many of which are in conflict with each other. They fight wars over resources, ideology, and sometimes simple pride. They have not yet learned that cooperation is the only path to survival." Kethvani nodded slowly. This was exactly what she had expected. Alas, the humans were at a critical stage of development, advanced enough to destroy themselves but not wise enough to prevent it. They needed guidance. They needed the Collective. "Very well, Shushon," she said. "Begin the standard first contact protocol. Broadcast our message on all frequencies they might be monitoring. Let them know that the Valorian Collective has come to offer them a place in galactic civilization." The message went out across the planet, transmitted in every language the probes had identified. It spoke of peace, of friendship, of the great benefits that came with joining the Collective. It promised technology that would solve their energy problems, medicine that would cure their diseases, and wisdom that would end their conflicts. All they had to do was accept Valorian guidance and follow Valorian rules. But Kethvani watched the planet below and waited for the panic to begin. It always started the same way. First came the shock, the disbelief, the frantic attempts to confirm that the alien ships were real. Then came the fear, the religious fervor, the military posturing that never amounted to anything. After that came the arguments, the debates about how to respond, the power struggles between those who wanted to fight and those who wanted to surrender. Finally, inevitably, came the acceptance. The primitive species would realize that resistance was impossible and that cooperation was their only option. The whole process usually took a few local days. Sometimes it took weeks if the species was particularly stubborn, but it always ended the same way, with the primitives bowing their heads and accepting their new place in the order of things. when Kethavani had no reason to think the humans would be any different. Ambassador, Tevras said, his voice carrying a note of confusion. Something strange is happening. What do you mean? Their communication networks. They went very active when we first arrived, as expected. But now they are going quiet. Kethavani frowned. Quiet? Are they shutting down their systems out of fear? No, Ambassador. The systems are still operational. They are simply not being used. It is as if they have all agreed to stop talking at the same time. This was unusual. Primitive species were rarely capable of coordinated action, especially in times of crisis. Their natural response to fear was chaos, not silence. Keep monitoring, Kethavani ordered. Ina, let me know if anything else unusual happens. She turned back to the view screen and studied the planet below. The blue oceans, the green and brown land masses, the white swirls of clouds. It was a beautiful world, rich in resources and potential. Under collective guidance, it could become a productive member of galactic civilization within a few centuries. Ambassador! Mothra's voice was sharp with alarm. I am detecting energy readings from the planet's surface. What kind of energy readings? I am not certain. They are coming from deep underground, from locations that were not identified by our probes. The readings are... Ambassador, these readings do not match any technology we cataloged. Kethavani felt the first stirring of unease in her stomach. Explain. Our probes scanned this world thoroughly. We identified all of their power plants, their military installations, their industrial centers. These energy sources were not there. They are new, or they were hidden from our scans. Hidden? How could primitives hide anything from our probes? Mothra did not answer. She was staring at her console with an expression that Kethavani had never seen before. It took her a moment to recognize it as fear. Ambassador, the energy readings are increasing. They are coming from a location in the middle of one of their oceans. The readings are now exceeding the output of our entire fleet combined. Kethavani opened her mouth to demand more information, but she never got the chance. The view screen flashed white as something erupted from the ocean below. At first, she thought it might be a volcanic eruption. And the humans' planet was geologically active, and their probes had detected many underwater volcanic sites. But as her eyes adjusted and the sensors began to provide data, she realized that what she was seeing was far more disturbing than any natural phenomenon. A ship was rising from the water. It was enormous. The Eternal Wisdom was one of the largest vessels in the Valorian fleet, measuring nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. The ship emerging from Earth's ocean was at least 3 times that size. Its hull was dark, almost black, and it was covered with structures that Kethavani did not recognize. Some looked like weapons, others looked like sensor arrays. Many looked like nothing she had ever seen before. Water cascaded from the rising vessel in great waterfalls, either crashing back into the ocean and creating waves that would be visible from space. The ship continued to climb, slowly but steadily, its massive engines leaving a trail of energy that burned like a small sun. That is impossible, Mothra whispered. That is completely impossible. Kethavani could not disagree. Everything she knew about the humans told her that they should not have been able to build anything like this. They could barely reach their own moon. They were still fighting wars with chemical explosives. They had no understanding of faster-than-light travel or advanced energy manipulation. And yet the ship continued to rise, impossibly huge and impossibly real. Ambassador, we are receiving a communication from the human vessel, Tevras reported. His voice was shaking. They are requesting to speak with the leader of our fleet. Kethavani stared at the view screen for a long moment. The human ship had cleared the atmosphere now and was moving into orbit. It was positioning itself directly between her fleet and the planet, its weapons arrays pointed outward in an unmistakable display of readiness. She had been doing this for 300 years. She had brought hundreds of worlds into the collective. She had never once faced a situation like this. Put them through, she said finally. The view screen flickered and a face appeared. It was a human face, belonging to a male with dark skin and gray hair. He wore some kind of military uniform, covered with decorations and symbols that Kethavani did not recognize. His eyes were calm and steady, showing no fear whatsoever. Irian, Ambassador Kethavani of the Valorian Collective, the human said. My name is General Marcus Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Welcome to our solar system. Kethavani struggled to find her voice. General Chen, I must say that your vessel is unexpected. The human smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I imagine it is. You came here expecting to find a primitive species, did you not? A young civilization, barely crawling out of its cradle, desperate for guidance from its galactic elders. We came here to offer you membership in the collective, to share our technology and our wisdom with your people. Yes, we received your broadcast. Very generous of you. The smile faded from Chen's face. But I am afraid we must decline your offer. You do not understand what you are refusing. The collective has brought peace and prosperity to thousands of worlds. We can solve your environmental problems, end your conflicts, cure your diseases. All we ask in return is that you accept our guidance. Your guidance, Chen repeated, your rules, your control over our governments, our economies, our cultures. We have studied your collective, Ambassador. We know exactly what membership means. Kethvani felt a chill run down her spine. You have studied us. How? That is not your concern. What matters is that we know who you are and what you want, and we are not interested. General, please be reasonable. Your vessel is impressive, but it is one ship against 12. Whatever technology you have acquired, it cannot change the fundamental reality of your situation. The collective has resources beyond anything you can imagine. Chen leaned forward slightly. Ambassador, let me make something very clear. This is not a negotiation. This is not a discussion. You are in our space, uninvited, and you have made threats against our world. The only reason we are having this conversation at all is because I believe in giving people one chance to make the right decision. And what decision would that be? Leave, now. Go back to your collective and tell them that Earth is not available. Tell them that humanity does not accept uninvited guests. And tell them that if they ever come here again without our permission, they will face the full might of our defense forces. Kethvani looked at the human warship on her view screen. She looked at the energy readings that were still pouring in from the planet below. She thought about her 300 years of experience and everything she knew about first contact situations. Then she thought about the look in General Chen's eyes. It was not the look of a primitive trying to bluff his way out of a hopeless situation. It was the look of someone who held all the cards and knew exactly how he was going to play them. I will need to consult with my government, she said finally. Chen nodded. You have 24 of our hours. After that, my patience will run out. The view screen went dark, and Kethvani was left staring at the impossible ship that hung between her fleet and the planet below. The shadow it cast was large enough to cover half her vessels. For the first time in 3 centuries, Ambassador Kethvani of the Valorian Collective did not know what to do. She turned to her officers, who were all looking at her with expressions of shock and confusion. They had been trained for many situations, but not for this. None of them had ever faced a primitive species that was not actually primitive. Send a message to the High Council, she ordered. Tell them that we have encountered an unexpected complication. Tell them that Earth may not be the easy target we believed it to be. She looked back at the view screen, at the massive human warship that should not exist. And tell them, she added quietly, that I think we may have made a serious mistake. Deep in the heart of the human vessel, General Marcus Chen allowed himself a small smile. The bluff was holding. The aliens were scared. That was good, but he knew better than anyone that it was only the beginning. The Valorians would not simply go away because he had asked them to. They would probe, they would test, they would try to find weaknesses, and eventually they would force him to show them exactly what humanity was capable of. He looked at the tactical display that showed the alien fleet and the planet he had sworn to protect. 8 billion people down there, going about their daily lives, most of them unaware of how close they had come to losing everything. Hold position, he ordered his crew, and be ready for anything. The shadow of the Defiance fell across the Valorian flagship, and the universe held its breath. 30 years before the Valorian fleet arrived in Earth's orbit, a research team in Antarctica made a discovery that would change human history forever. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was the leader of that team. She was a geologist, was sent to study ice core samples that might tell them about Earth's ancient climate. It was supposed to be a routine mission, the kind of work that produced papers for scientific journals, but rarely made headlines. She had no idea that she was about to find something that would be classified above top secret and hidden from the world for 3 decades. The discovery began with a simple anomaly. The ground-penetrating radar had detected something strange beneath the ice, something that did not match any known geological formation. At first, Sarah thought it might be an underwater lake, the kind that sometimes form beneath Antarctic glaciers. But the readings were wrong. The shape was too regular, too precise. "It looks almost artificial," said her assistant. A young man named James Park, who had only been out of graduate school for 2 years. "That is impossible," Sarah replied. But even as she said the words, she felt a growing sense of unease. The shape on her screen was definitely artificial. It had smooth curves and straight lines and angles that nature simply did not produce. They spent 3 days confirming the readings, making sure there was no equipment malfunction or data error. When they were certain that what they were seeing was real, Sarah made a decision that would change her life forever. She contacted her superiors and told them what she had found. Within 48 hours, the small research station was surrounded by military helicopters and personnel from agencies whose names Sarah did not recognize. She and her team were questioned extensively, sworn to secrecy, and then given a choice. They could leave and never speak of what they had seen, or they could stay and help uncover the truth. Sarah chose to stay. The excavation took almost 2 years. The object was buried under more than a kilometer of ice, and the work had to be done carefully to avoid damaging whatever was down there. They built a massive underground facility around the excavation site, complete with laboratories, living quarters, and enough security to guard the most valuable secret on Earth. When they finally reached the object, Sarah understood why. It was a ship, not a human ship, not anything built by any civilization that had ever existed on Earth. It was alien, completely and unmistakably alien. The hull was made of a metal that no one could identify, darker than black and smoother than glass. The design was elegant, only almost organic, with curves and shapes that seemed to flow into each other like water. The ship was old. Carbon dating was useless on the alien materials, but other methods suggested that it had been buried under the ice for at least 50 million years. It had been there since before humans existed, before apes existed, before most of the species that currently lived on Earth had even evolved, and it was mostly intact. The following years were spent studying the ship and its contents. Teams of scientists from every field were brought in, all sworn to the same secrecy that bound Sarah. They found technology that made human achievements look like children's toys, power systems that could run for millions of years without refueling, materials that were stronger than anything humans could manufacture, computers that stored more information than all of Earth's libraries combined. But they also found weapons. The ship had been a warship once. That much was clear. Its hull was scarred with damage from battles fought before dinosaurs walked the Earth. Its weapon systems, though ancient and partially degraded, were still powerful enough to destroy cities. Whoever had built this vessel had not been peaceful explorers. They had been warriors, and they had fought against enemies that humans could barely imagine. The question that haunted everyone involved in the project was simple. What had happened to them? Where were the builders of this ship? And were there others like them still out there among the stars? The world's governments debated in secret for months about what to do with the discovery. Some wanted to announce it to the public, to share the knowledge with all of humanity. Others argued for caution, pointing out that revealing the existence of advanced alien technology might cause panic and chaos. A few suggested destroying the ship entirely, afraid of what might happen if its power fell into the wrong hands. In the end, they chose a middle path. The ship would remain secret, known only to a small group of scientists and military personnel. But its technology would be studied, adapted, and used to prepare humanity for whatever might be waiting in the darkness between the stars. The project was given a name, Vanguard. General Marcus Chen joined Vanguard when he was still a young captain, fresh from combat tours and conflicts that the public had long since forgotten. He was chosen for his intelligence, his discretion, and his ability to see the big picture when others got lost in details. Over the years, he rose through the ranks of the secret organization, eventually becoming its military commander. He watched as human scientists slowly unlocked the secrets of the alien ship. The power systems came first, compact fusion reactors that could fit in a basement and produce enough energy to power entire cities. Then came the materials science, new alloys and composites that were lighter and stronger than anything humans had ever created. Then came the weapons, modified and adapted from the original alien designs to suit human needs and human hands. The Vanguard protocol was developed over decades of careful planning. It assumed that Earth would eventually be visited by aliens, and that those aliens might not have humanity's best interests at heart. The protocol called for a careful deception. Let any watchers believe that humanity was primitive and harmless, while building a defense force in secret that could respond to any threat. The Defiance was the centerpiece of that force. It took 20 years to build, using a combination of alien technology and human engineering. Where the original ship had been elegant, the Defiance was powerful. Where the alien designers had valued beauty, human builders valued strength. The result was a vessel that looked like a weapon made solid, a warship that could stand against anything the galaxy might send. There were other ships as well, smaller vessels hidden in underground bases around the world. There were ground-based weapons, orbital defense platforms, and automated systems designed to activate if the worst should happen. Well, humanity had spent 30 years preparing for a day that they hoped would never come. Then the Valorians arrived. General Chen was in his office when the alert came, reviewing supply reports that seemed laughably mundane in comparison to what was about to happen. His communicator beeped, and the calm voice of his aide informed him that unknown vessels had been detected entering the solar system. He did not panic. He did not rush. He simply stood up, put on his uniform jacket, and walked to the command center that he had visited thousands of times in training exercises, but never in actual operation. The room was already filling with personnel when he arrived. Screens showed the approaching alien fleet, 12 vessels of varying sizes moving toward Earth with obvious purpose. And analysts were already comparing the designs to records in the Vanguard database, trying to determine if these were the same species that had built the ancient ship. They are not, reported Dr. Elizabeth Wong, the current head of scientific research for Vanguard. She was standing beside the main display, her face pale but her voice steady. The technology is different. These vessels are less advanced than the ship we found, though still far beyond anything we can build conventionally. Less advanced, Chen repeated. How much less? Difficult to say precisely, but based on their energy signatures and hull compositions, I would estimate they are perhaps a few thousand years ahead of conventional human technology. Impressive, but not insurmountable. Chen nodded slowly. This was actually good news. Though he was careful not to show too much optimism, the species that had built the original ship had been unimaginably advanced, probably millions of years beyond humanity. If these newcomers were only a few thousand years ahead, then the Defiance and its alien-derived weapons might actually stand a chance. What are their intentions, he asked. Unknown, but they are broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Elizabeth touched a control, and the message played through the room's speakers. It spoke of the Valorian collective, of membership and guidance, and all the benefits of joining a galactic civilization. Chen listened to the whole thing without expression. When it was finished, he turned to his aide. Wake up the Defiance, all hands to battle stations, and activate the Vanguard protocol globally. I want every hidden asset ready to launch within the hour. Yes, General. What about civilian authorities? Inform the heads of state through the usual channels. Tell them to keep their people calm and let us handle this. And tell them to stay off the communications networks. We need the aliens to think that humanity is panicking and disorganized. The orders went out, and the vast machinery of the Vanguard protocol began to turn. In bases around the world, crews that had trained for years were finally called to actual duty. Ships that had never flown outside of carefully concealed test ranges were powered up and made ready. Weapons that had existed only in classified documents became real and deadly. General Chen watched the alien fleet take up positions over Earth's major cities. When he saw the shadows of their vessels fall across London and Tokyo and New York. He understood what they were trying to do, the intimidation in theater designed to make humanity feel small and helpless. He allowed himself a small smile. They have no idea what they are dealing with, he said quietly. Dr. Wong looked at him with an expression that mixed hope and fear. Are you sure about this, General? We have never actually tested our systems against a real alien threat. Everything could fail. It could, Chen agreed, but I have spent my entire career preparing for this moment. Every officer on the Defiance has trained for exactly this situation. We may be facing an unknown enemy, but we are not helpless primitives. We have the technology of a civilization that built starships before life crawled out of Earth's oceans. Now we have adapted it, improved it, made it our own. He turned to face the main screen, where the Defiance was now visible, rising from its hidden base beneath the Pacific Ocean. The ship was beautiful in its brutal way, a massive testament to human determination and ingenuity. And most importantly, Chen continued, we have something they do not expect. They came here looking for easy prey. They found humanity instead. The Defiance broke through the cloud layer and climbed toward orbit. Its weapon systems powered up, their distinctive energy signatures broadcasting a clear message to anyone watching. Earth was not defenseless. General Chen straightened his uniform and prepared to face the ambassador of the Valorian collective. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not what it appeared to be. In her quarters aboard the Eternal Wisdom, Ambassador HFY was still trying to understand what had happened. The human warship hung in space before her fleet, its weapons trained on her vessels with obvious readiness. Its design was unlike anything in the collective's databases, combining familiar principles with completely unknown technologies. How is this possible? She demanded of her science officer. How could they have built this? Mothra shook her head slowly. I do not know, Ambassador. The energy readings from that vessel they should not exist. Some of the signatures match technologies that the collective has never been able to develop. Others match nothing in our records at all. Could they have been contacted by another species? One that provided them with this technology? It is possible, Wayne, but there is no record of any species in this region of space capable of building something like this. The nearest advanced civilizations are thousands of light years away, and none of them would have any reason to arm a primitive world against the collective. HFY stared at the human ship on her view screen. It was called the Defiance according to the identification beacon it was broadcasting. An appropriate name for a vessel that seemed designed specifically to defy everything she thought she knew about the universe. We need more information, she said finally. Contact our agents in this sector. See if anyone has heard of humans or Earth or anything that might explain this situation. Yes, Ambassador. HFY turned back to the view screen. The human general had given her 24 hours to make a decision. So 24 hours to determine whether the collective should fight, negotiate, or retreat. 24 hours to figure out how a species that could barely reach its own moon had somehow acquired the technology to challenge the masters of 1,000 worlds. She had a feeling that the answers, when they came, would not be pleasant. The first 12 hours of the standoff passed in tense silence. The Valorian fleet held its position above Earth, not advancing but not retreating. The Defiance remained between them and the planet, its weapons powered up and its shields active. Neither side made a move, but neither side stood down. General Marcus Chen used the time well. He ordered his crews to collect every bit of data they could about the alien vessels. Sensors probed the Valorian ships, analyzing their hull compositions, and their energy signatures, their weapon systems. The information flowed into the Defiance's computers, where analysts worked around the clock to find weaknesses that might be exploited if diplomacy failed. The picture that emerged was both reassuring and troubling. The Valorian ships were advanced, certainly more advanced than anything humanity could have built without the alien technology from Antarctica. But they were not invincible. Their shields had frequencies that could be disrupted. Their weapons had power curves that suggested limited sustained fire capability. Their engines, while efficient, were not fast enough to outrun the Defiance if pursuit became necessary. The troubling part was the numbers. 12 Valorian ships against one human vessel. Even with its technological advantages, the Defiance could not be everywhere at once. If the aliens decided to attack the planet directly, spreading their forces to strike multiple targets simultaneously, there was no way to protect everyone. We need to convince them not to fight at all, Chen told his senior staff during a briefing in the ship's command center. Our best weapon right now is their uncertainty. They do not know what we are capable of. We need to keep it that way. How do we do that, sir? Asked Captain Diana Ross, the Defiance's executive officer. She was a tall woman with sharp features and sharper instincts, and she had been with the Vanguard project for almost as long as Chen himself. We show them just enough to make them afraid, but not enough for them to understand our limitations. We let them imagine that what they see is only the beginning, us that there is more hidden beneath the surface. Is there? Asked Dr. Wong, who was participating in the briefing via video link from her laboratory on Earth. Chen smiled slightly. There is enough. We have the secondary fleet in reserve, the orbital platforms, the ground-based weapons. But more importantly, we have the unknown. The Valorians have no idea how we got this technology or how much of it we have. Let them fill in the blanks with their own fears. The strategy was risky, but it was the only option that did not involve actual combat. Chen knew that his ship could probably destroy the Valorian fleet if it came to a straight fight. The weapon systems derived from the ancient alien ship were far more powerful than anything the Collective possessed. But victory would come at a cost. And that cost might include revealing too much about humanity's true capabilities. Better to win without fighting if possible. Ambassador Kethvani spent the same 12 hours in frantic communication with the Valorian Collective. The news of Earth's unexpected defense had traveled quickly through the Collective's information networks, and the responses were varied and often contradictory. Some council members urged immediate withdrawal. The humans were clearly more dangerous than expected, they argued, and the potential gains from this world did not justify the risks. Better to leave quietly and pretend that the whole incident had never happened. Others demanded action. The Collective had never been challenged by a primitive species before, and allowing this defiance to go unpunished would set a dangerous precedent. If humanity could scare off a Valorian fleet, other species might be encouraged to try the same thing. A few voices suggested a middle path. Negotiate with the humans, learn more about their technology, and then make a decision based on better information. This was the approach that Kethvani herself favored, though she was careful not to express her opinion too strongly until she had a better sense of which way the political winds were blowing. In the end, the High Council authorized her to continue diplomatic contact while gathering intelligence. She was not to withdraw, but she was also not to provoke a conflict. She was to find out everything she could about the humans and their mysterious technology and report back before any final decisions were made. It was exactly the kind of vague, cautious instruction that made Kethvani's job so difficult. The council wanted answers without taking risks, progress without commitment. They wanted her to solve the problem without actually doing anything that might cause problems of its own. Still, she had her orders. She opened a channel to the human warship. General Chen accepted the communication in his private office, a small room adjacent to the main bridge that served as both his workspace and his sanctuary. He sat behind a simple desk, his uniform perfectly pressed, his expression calm and unreadable. Ambassador Kethvani, he said as her image appeared on his screen, I was beginning to think you had forgotten about me. General Chen, I have been in communication with my government, as I said I would be. And what has your government decided? Kethvani chose her words carefully. They have authorized me to continue our discussion. We would like to learn more about your situation before making any final decisions. My situation is quite simple, Ambassador. Your fleet is in our space without invitation. We would like you to leave. General, please understand our position. The Collective has brought peace and prosperity to thousands of worlds. We have lifted countless species out of barbarism and into civilization. We come with good intentions. Your intentions may be good, but your methods are not. You arrived without warning, positioned your ships over our cities in an obvious display of intimidation, and broadcast a message that assumed we would simply surrender to your guidance. When that is not the behavior of friendly visitors. Kethvani felt a flash of frustration. She had used the same approach on hundreds of worlds, and it had always worked. The primitives recognized superior technology when they saw it, and they accepted the inevitable with varying degrees of grace. Why were these humans so different? Perhaps we could start again, she suggested. Forget our initial contact and begin fresh. I am willing to meet with you in person, on neutral ground, to discuss a mutually beneficial relationship between our peoples. Chen was silent for a moment, considering the offer. Kethvani found herself hoping that he would accept. A face-to-face meeting would give her opportunities to observe the human leader more closely, to assess his weaknesses and his strengths. Very well, Chen said finally. When there is a space station in orbit around our moon, far enough from Earth to be considered neutral territory, we will meet there in 6 of your hours. Agreed. I will bring a small delegation. Security personnel only. As will I. An ambassador. I suggest you come with an open mind. What you think you know about humanity may not be accurate. The connection ended, and Kethevani sat back in her chair. She had gotten what she wanted, a chance to evaluate the human threat up close. But Chen's final words bothered her. There was something in his tone that suggested secrets, layers of deception that she had not yet begun to uncover. What did the humans know that she did not? The meeting took place on Lunar Station Gamma, at a small facility that officially existed to study the moon's geology, but actually served as a forward base for the Vanguard project. The station had been evacuated of all non-essential personnel, leaving only a skeleton crew to maintain basic functions. Ambassador Kethevani arrived with 2 security officers and her science advisor, Mothra. She wanted additional perspectives on whatever the humans might reveal, and Mothra's scientific expertise could prove valuable in assessing any technology they might display. General Chen brought Captain Ross and 2 soldiers armed with weapons that Kethevani's scanners could not identify. The guns looked simple enough, but their energy signatures suggested capabilities that went far beyond their primitive appearance. They met in the station's conference room, or a circular space with a large table in the center and windows that looked out on the gray lunar surface. Earth hung in the sky outside, a blue and white jewel against the blackness of space. "Ambassador," Chen said, gesturing to a seat, "please, make yourself comfortable." Kethevani sat, noting how the human moved with the casual confidence of someone who was completely in control of the situation. It was not arrogance exactly, but something closer to certainty. He knew something that she did not, and he was content to let her wonder what it might be. "General, I appreciate your willingness to meet. Before we begin, I must ask, where did your people acquire the technology for your warship? Our probes indicated that your civilization was pre-interstellar. Clearly, that assessment was incorrect." Chen smiled slightly. "Do you want to know our secrets, Ambassador? That is understandable. But surely you must realize that I am not going to reveal sensitive information to a potential adversary. We do not have to be adversaries. That is why I am here." "True. So let me ask you a question in return. In your centuries of bringing worlds into your collective, how many species have you encountered that could challenge your technology?" Kethevani considered the question. "A few. The collective has faced opposition before, though never from a species at your apparent level of development." "And what happened to those species that opposed you?" The ambassador hesitated. The truth was not something she wanted to admit, but lying seemed pointless when Chen clearly already knew the answer. "They were integrated, eventually. Some took longer than others, but all ultimately accepted the benefits of membership." "You mean they were conquered?" Chen said flatly. "Their resistance was crushed, their cultures absorbed, their independence eliminated." "That is a harsh way of putting it. Is it inaccurate?" Kethevani did not answer. Chen leaned forward. "Ambassador, let me be clear about something. Humanity has studied your collective. We have analyzed your methods, your history, your treatment of the species you have absorbed, and we have decided that we want no part of it. How could you possibly have studied us? Your probes have never left your own system. That is what you believe. But as you have already discovered, what you believe about humanity is not always accurate." Mothra spoke up for the first time. "General, your technology shows signatures that are not consistent with any known species in this region of space. Some of the readings we have collected suggest systems that are millions of years old. Where did you find them?" Chen turned his gaze to the science officer. "That is an interesting question, and one I am not prepared to answer. Let us just say that the galaxy is older than your collective realizes, and not everything has been cataloged in your databases." "You found something," Kethevani said, understanding dawning. "An artifact. A ship. Something left behind by an older civilization. You reverse-engineered their technology. Clever, Ambassador, but I will neither confirm nor deny your theory. It does not matter whether you confirm it or not. The fact remains that your species is primitive. Once you have borrowed power that you do not understand, eventually that power will fail you, and you will need the collective's guidance." Chen's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. Ambassador, I am going to show you something. I want you to watch very carefully and then reconsider your assessment of humanity's capabilities. He pulled a small device from his pocket and set it on the table. It was a simple cylinder, no larger than his finger, made of the same dark metal that covered the Defiance's hull. Chen touched a control, and the device projected a holographic display above the table. Kethevani watched as images formed in the air. Ships, dozens of them, hidden in underground bases and underwater facilities around Earth. Weapons platforms in orbit, disguised as inactive satellites. Power generators buried deep beneath mountain ranges, producing enough energy to light entire continents. And at the center of it all, the Defiance, the first and largest of humanity's new warships. This is what we have built in 30 years, Chen said quietly. 30 years of secret work, using technology that predates your collective by millions of years. And we are just getting started. The display changed, showing projections of future development. More ships, more weapons, expansion into the solar system and beyond. Chen was showing her humanity's plans for the next century, a roadmap that would transform them from a single-planet species into a genuine interstellar power. You came here expecting to find primitives, Chen continued. You found something else. We are not ready to join your collective, Ambassador. We may never be ready, but we are most definitely ready to defend ourselves. Kethevani stared at the display, her mind racing through the implications. Everything she had assumed about this mission was wrong. The humans were not helpless children waiting to be guided. They were a young species, yes, but one that had stumbled upon a tremendous advantage and had used it wisely. What do you want from us? She asked finally. Nothing. We want you to leave us alone. Go back to your collective and tell them that Earth is off limits. Tell them that if they ever send ships here again without our invitation, they will face consequences that they are not prepared to handle. And if I cannot convince them, if the Council decides that humanity is a threat that must be dealt with, Chen met her eyes steadily. Then we will deal with that situation when it arises. But I strongly suggest that you make them understand the risks. Your collective has never lost a war, Ambassador. Do not let Earth be the place where that record ends. The meeting concluded shortly afterward. Kethevani returned to her flagship with much to think about. She had come looking for information, and she had found more than she expected. The humans were dangerous, more dangerous than any species the collective had encountered in centuries. And the worst part was that Chen had clearly not shown her everything. The display he had provided was impressive, but it was obviously edited, designed to reveal enough to intimidate without exposing actual vulnerabilities. There was more power hiding beneath Earth's surface, more secrets waiting to be discovered. For the first time in her long career, Ambassador Kethevani was genuinely afraid. Not for herself, but for the collective. What would happen when the galaxy learned that humanity existed? The Valorian High Council met in emergency session for the first time in 300 years. The great chamber on their homeworld, a vast hall of crystal and light that had witnessed countless debates and decisions, was filled with the most powerful leaders of the collective. They had come from across their territory, some traveling for days through hyperspace to attend this meeting in person. Ambassador Kethevani stood before them, feeling the weight of thousands of eyes upon her. She had served the collective faithfully for centuries, and never once had she delivered a report like this one. While the humans possess technology that exceeds our own in several key areas, she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. Their primary warship appears to use power systems derived from an ancient civilization, one that predates the collective by millions of years. Their weapons are capable of penetrating our shields with ease. Their defenses are robust and sophisticated. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The council members were not accustomed to hearing such things. The collective had always been the most advanced civilization in their region of space, the unquestioned masters of technology and warfare. The idea that a primitive species could challenge that supremacy was disturbing. How many ships do they have? Asked Councillor Vethan, an ancient male who had led the collective's military forces for nearly 500 years. On at least one confirmed, possibly dozens more in reserve. They have hidden their true capabilities carefully. What they showed me may be only a fraction of their actual strength. And their intentions? They want to be left alone. The human general made it very clear that they have no interest in joining the collective and that they will fight to protect their independence. Counselor Vethan leaned forward in his seat. One species, one planet, and they think they can defy us? The collective controls thousands of worlds. We have millions of ships. Even with advanced technology, they cannot possibly resist us if we commit our full strength. Perhaps, Kethvani agreed, but at what cost? The humans have already demonstrated that they can destroy our vessels. A full-scale war would result in significant losses on our side, even if we ultimately prevail. And there is another consideration, which is, where the humans obtain their technology. If there was once a civilization capable of building such things, there may be others. Other artifacts, other discoveries waiting to be found. If we attack Earth and fail, we will have made an enemy of a species that is only beginning to understand the power they possess. Give them a few centuries, and they could become a genuine threat to the collective itself. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered her words. The collective had always operated on the assumption that they were the dominant power in the galaxy. The discovery that this assumption might be wrong was deeply unsettling. Counselor Methra, the leader of the diplomatic faction, spoke next. What do you recommend, an ambassador? Kethvani took a deep breath. She had thought about this question for the entire journey back from Earth, weighing options and considering consequences. Her answer would shape the future of the collective's relationship with humanity. I recommend withdrawal, she said. We should remove our fleet from human space and establish a policy of non-interference. We should monitor them from a distance, study their development, and wait to see how they evolve as a civilization. You would have us run from primitives? Counselor Vethan's voice dripped with contempt. I would have us avoid a conflict that we cannot win cleanly. The humans are not primitives, Counselor. They are a young species with old technology, and that is a dangerous combination. They have already surprised us once, and I do not want to find out what other surprises they may have in store. The debate continued for hours. Factions formed and reformed as different council members argued for different approaches. Some wanted war, believing that the collective's superior numbers would inevitably prevail. Others wanted negotiation, hoping that the humans might be convinced to share their technology in exchange for peaceful relations. A few even suggested allying with the humans, recognizing that their technology could be valuable against the collective's other rivals. In the end, the decision came down to a simple calculation of risk and reward. The humans had something valuable, but taking it by force would be expensive and uncertain. The collective had other concerns, other projects, other threats to manage. Earth was not worth the trouble it would cause. By a narrow margin, the council voted to withdraw. The news reached General Chen through the Vanguard Project's intelligence network, a web of sensors and listening devices that had been spread throughout the solar system years before the Valorians arrived. He was in his quarters aboard the Defiance when his communication console chimed with the alert. They are leaving, Captain Ross reported, her voice carrying a mixture of relief and disbelief. The whole fleet is powering up their drives. They will be out of the system within a few hours. Chen nodded slowly, allowing himself to feel a moment of satisfaction. The gamble had paid off. The Valorians had looked at humanity and decided that the cost of conquest was too high. They were retreating, at least for now. Maintain our position until they are completely gone, he ordered. I do not want any misunderstandings at this stage. Yes, sir. What about the secondary fleet? Keep them in reserve. There is no need to reveal more than we already have. He ended the communication and sat back in his chair, staring out the window at the stars. The crisis was over, but he knew that it was only a temporary victory. The Valorians would be back eventually, or others would come. The galaxy was vast and full of civilizations that might see Earth as a target or a threat. Humanity needed to be ready. He began composing a message to the world's leaders, the small group of people who knew the truth about Vanguard and the alien technology hidden beneath Earth's surface. The message was simple. The immediate threat had passed, but the long-term challenge was just beginning. They needed to accelerate their preparations, build more ships, develop more weapons, expand their reach beyond their own solar system. The Valorians had given humanity a gift, though they did not know it. They had provided a test, a chance to prove that the Vanguard protocol worked, And they had demonstrated that the galaxy was exactly as dangerous as the project's founders had always feared. Chen finished his message and sent it on its way. Then he turned to another task, one that he had been putting off since the crisis began. The ancient ship in Antarctica had been studied for 30 years, but there was still much that remained unknown. Its databases contained information about civilizations and technologies that humans had barely begun to understand. Its star charts showed regions of space that the Valorians had never explored. Its history recorded wars and alliances that had shaped the galaxy millions of years before the collective existed. Chen had access to all of this information, but he had always been cautious about using it. The Vanguard project's priority had been defense, not exploration. They had focused on building weapons and ships, not on understanding the broader context of the universe they were entering. That needed to change. He opened a secure channel to Dr. Wang's laboratory. "Elizabeth, I need you to restart the translation project. I want to know everything that ship can tell us about who built it, why they were fighting, and what happened to them." Wang's voice came back, surprised but eager. "That could take years, General. The linguistic databases alone are enormous, and much of the context has been lost. Then we had better get started. We, the Valorians, are leaving, but they will be back, or someone else will come. We need to understand the galaxy better than we do now. I will begin immediately, but may I ask what prompted this change in priorities?" Chen thought about the ambassador's face during their meeting, the mixture of fear and calculation in her eyes. The Valorians had been surprised by humanity's technology, but they had not been truly afraid. They had withdrawn because the cost was too high, not because they believed they could not win. Next time might be different. Next time, the enemy might be more determined, more ruthless, more willing to pay the price of conquest. "The Valorians taught me something," Chen said finally. "We have been thinking too small. We have been preparing to defend Earth, but Earth is just one planet in a very large galaxy. If we want to survive in the long term, we need to understand what is out there. We need to know who the builders of that ship were fighting and whether those enemies might still exist." He paused, looking out at the stars once more. "And we need to be ready for whatever comes next." On the observation deck of the Eternal Wisdom, Ambassador Kethvani watched as her fleet prepared to leave Earth's solar system. The blue planet hung in the distance, beautiful and deceptively peaceful. It was hard to believe that such a small world could have caused so much trouble. "Ambassador," Mothra said, joining her at the window, "the drives are charged. We will enter hyperspace in a few minutes." "Good. I will be glad to put this place behind us." Mothra was silent for a moment, then spoke again. "Ambassador, wait, may I ask a question?" "Of course. Do you think we made the right decision, leaving without a fight?" Kethvani considered the question carefully. She had argued for withdrawal, but that did not mean she was entirely comfortable with the outcome. The collective had never retreated from a primitive species before. The precedent was troubling. "I think we made the only decision we could make with the information we had," she said finally. "The humans are dangerous. Their technology is beyond our understanding. Fighting them would have been costly and uncertain. But we could have won. Perhaps, but winning is not the same as succeeding. Even if we had destroyed their warship and conquered their planet, we would still have to deal with the consequences. Other species would learn that the collective can be challenged. The humans themselves would continue to resist, as conquered peoples always do. And somewhere out there might be more technology like what they found, more ancient weapons waiting to be discovered." She turned away from the window. "No, retreat was the right choice, but it is not the end. We will watch the humans. We will study their development, and when the time is right, we will return. And if they continue to grow stronger," Kethvani smiled, though there was no warmth in it, "then we will find other ways to deal with them. The collective has been patient before. We can be patient again." The Eternal Wisdom shuddered slightly as its hyperspace drives engaged. The stars stretched and blurred, and then the ship was gone, leaving Earth's solar system as suddenly as it had arrived. General Chen watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the last Valorian vessel disappeared. The sensor displays showed empty space where 12 alien ships had been just moments before. The crisis was truly over. "Stand down from battle stations," he ordered. "Begin standard patrols. I want every sensor we have watching for any sign of their return." His crew moved to comply, the tension in the room slowly giving way to relief. They had done it. They had faced an alien invasion and won, not through fighting, but through careful preparation and strategic deception. Chen allowed himself one moment of pride before turning his mind to the future. The Valorians would be back, of that he was certain. Or others would come, drawn by curiosity or greed or fear. The galaxy knew about humanity now, and that knowledge could not be erased. When he looked down at Earth, the planet he had sworn to protect, 8 billion people lived down there, most of them unaware of how close they had come to losing everything. They would go on with their lives, their conflicts, their dreams and disappointments. They would never know the truth about the ships hidden beneath their oceans or the weapons pointed at their skies. That was how it had to be, at least for now. The world was not ready to learn that it was not alone in the universe. But someday, perhaps, the secret would be revealed. Someday, humanity would look up at the stars and know that they had a place among them. Until then, the Vanguard project would keep watch, and General Marcus Chen would be ready for whatever came next. The shadow of the Defiance passed slowly over Earth, a silent guardian in the darkness between the stars. 5 years passed after the Valorian withdrawal. In that time, humanity changed in ways both visible and hidden. On the surface, life continued much as it always had. People went to work, raised families, argued about politics and sports and the small dramas of daily existence. The world's nations continued their ancient rivalries, though the shadow governments that controlled the Vanguard project worked quietly to reduce tensions wherever possible. A united humanity was a stronger humanity, and strength was what they needed most. Beneath the surface, the transformation was more dramatic. The Vanguard project expanded rapidly, building new ships and training new crews. The Defiance was joined by sister vessels, the Resolve, the Vigilance, the Determination. Each one was a masterpiece of combined human engineering and alien technology, and were capable of fighting anything the galaxy might send against them. General Chen retired from active command 3 years after the Valorian crisis, passing leadership of the project to Captain Diana Ross, now promoted to Admiral. He remained involved as a consultant and advisor, his experience too valuable to lose entirely. But the daily responsibilities fell to younger officers, the next generation of defenders who would carry humanity's torch forward. Dr. Elizabeth Wong made the breakthrough that everyone had been waiting for. After years of painstaking work, her team finally cracked the translation algorithms for the ancient ship's databases. The information that poured out changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. The ship had belonged to a species called the Architects. They're a civilization so old that they had risen and fallen before most of the galaxy's current inhabitants had evolved. They had not been conquerors like the Valorians. They had been builders, creating vast structures throughout the cosmos that served purposes humanity could only guess at. But they had also been warriors when necessary. The scars on the ship's hull told a story of desperate battles against an enemy that the databases called only the Darkness. The war had lasted for millions of years, spreading across galaxies and claiming countless lives. In the end, neither side had truly won. The Architects had faded into extinction, their great works falling silent, and the Darkness had retreated to somewhere beyond the reach of sensors or probes. Chen read the reports in his mountain cabin, far from the busy halls of the Vanguard project. When the information was troubling, but not surprising, he had always suspected that the galaxy was more dangerous than anyone realized. The ancient ship was proof that civilizations could rise to incredible heights and still fall to threats they could not overcome. But there was hope in the databases too. The Architects had left behind more than just the one ship buried beneath Antarctic ice. There were caches of technology scattered throughout the galaxy, hidden in places that the Valorians and other current civilizations had never found. Some were weapons designed to fight the Darkness. Others were tools for building and creating, machines that could terraform planets or construct habitats in the emptiness between stars. If humanity could find these caches, they could become something more than defenders. They could become true players on the galactic stage, capable of shaping the future rather than just surviving it. Admiral Ross authorized the first exploration missions within months of the translation breakthrough. Ships equipped with the star charts from the ancient database set out for distant corners of the galaxy, searching for the Architects' lost treasures. Some missions found nothing. Others discovered artifacts that were damaged beyond repair. But a few returned with prizes that made all the effort worthwhile. The second alien cache was found orbiting a dead star, 300 light-years from Earth. It was smaller than the Antarctic ship, but its technology was more advanced in certain ways. The power systems it contained could generate energy from the fabric of space itself, drawing power from the quantum fluctuations that existed everywhere in the universe. When human engineers adapted this technology for use in their ships, the range and capability of the Vanguard fleet increased dramatically. The third cache was found buried on a frozen moon at the edge of a distant solar system. It contained weapons, terrible weapons designed to destroy threats on a planetary scale. Chen argued against bringing this technology back to Earth, fearing what might happen if it fell into the wrong hands. But the decision was not his to make anymore, and the weapons were brought home and placed under the heaviest security the project could provide. News of humanity's expansion eventually reached the Valoran collective. Ambassador Kethvani, now retired from active service, learned of it through the intelligence network she still maintained. The reports were concerning. The humans were no longer confined to their single planet. They had ships exploring the galaxy, discovering technologies that even the collective did not possess. She requested a meeting with the High Council, warning them that their decision to withdraw might have been a mistake. The humans were growing stronger every year, and the gap between their capabilities and the collectives was narrowing. If action was not taken soon, it might be too late. The council listened politely, but they were not inclined to change course. The collective had its own problems to deal with, including a minor rebellion in one of their outer territories, and ongoing tensions with a rival civilization on their eastern border. Earth was far away, and the humans had not threatened anyone since the initial confrontation. As long as they kept to themselves, the council saw no reason to provoke another conflict. Kethvani left the meeting frustrated and worried. She had seen the look in General Chen's eyes during their negotiation 5 years ago. He was not a man who would be content with mere survival. He wanted more for his species, and he had the tools to achieve it. The collective was making a mistake by ignoring the human threat, and by the time they realized it, it might be too late to correct. But there was nothing she could do. She was old now, her influence fading. The future belonged to younger leaders who had never faced the defiance in battle or seen the impossible technology that humans had somehow acquired. She returned to her home on the Valorian homeworld and waited for the news that she knew would eventually come. It came 15 years after the initial contact, when humanity made its formal announcement to the galaxy. The message was broadcast on every frequency, transmitted through relays that humans had placed in strategic locations throughout their region of space. It reached the Valorians, the other civilizations that neighbored them, and countless species that had never heard of Earth or its inhabitants. Admiral Diana Ross delivered the message herself, standing on the bridge of the Defiance with Earth visible through the windows behind her. She spoke calmly, without arrogance or threat, but the words themselves carried weight that could not be ignored. To all civilizations of the galaxy, this is Admiral Diana Ross of the United Earth Defense Force. 20 years ago, your representatives came to our world and found us unprepared for the reality of galactic civilization. We have spent the time since then correcting that mistake. Humanity now possesses a fleet of warships capable of projecting power beyond our home system. We have established outposts on 17 worlds and have exploration vessels operating throughout this region of space. We have recovered and adapted technology from civilizations far older than any currently existing, and we continue to grow stronger with each passing year. We do not seek conflict with any species. We ask only to be left alone, to develop at our own pace and in our own way. But we will not accept subjugation, and we will not allow anyone to threaten our world or our people. The galaxy has changed. Humanity is now a part of it. We suggest that you adjust your expectations accordingly. The message ended, and the galaxy reacted. Some civilizations dismissed the humans as arrogant newcomers who would soon learn their place. Others took the warning seriously and began to reevaluate their own military preparations. A few sent diplomatic missions to Earth, hoping to establish friendly relations with this new power before conflicts could develop. The Valorian collective did nothing. They had already made their decision years ago, and the Council was not inclined to revisit it. The humans were far away and had not actually threatened anyone. Until they did something to provoke a response, the collective would continue to ignore them. It was a decision they would eventually regret, but that is a story for another time. On Earth, life continued to change in both obvious and subtle ways. The Vanguard project was gradually revealed to the public over a period of several years, preparing humanity for the truth about the galaxy and their place in it. There was shock at first, and fear, and anger at the governments that had kept such important secrets for so long. But gradually, acceptance came. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and that was both terrifying and wonderful. General Marcus Chen died peacefully in his cabin in the mountains, surrounded by former colleagues and friends. He was 93 years old, and he had spent the last 50 years of his life preparing humanity for a future that he would never see. At his funeral, Admiral Ross spoke about his vision, with his determination and his unwavering belief that humanity could face any challenge if they worked together. He saw the future before anyone else, she said. He understood that the galaxy was dangerous and that we needed to be ready. Everything we have accomplished, every ship we have built, every world we have explored, began with his leadership. We owe him a debt that can never be repaid. The Defiance flew in formation above the ceremony, its weapons silent but its presence a reminder of everything that Chen had created. It was the ship that had first cast its shadow across the Valorian fleet, the vessel that had announced to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. It would continue to serve for centuries to come, upgraded and improved with each passing generation, a symbol of humanity's determination to survive. For 50 years after first contact, humanity joined the loose association of civilizations that called itself the Galactic Assembly. They were not the most powerful member, not yet, but they were respected. The technology they had recovered from the architects gave them capabilities that even the oldest civilizations could not match, and their willingness to defend themselves had been proven many times. Ambassador Kethvani did not live to see it. She had died 30 years after her retirement, alone on the Valorian homeworld, still worried about the humans she had never truly understood. But her warnings had eventually proven correct. The collective had underestimated humanity, and they had paid the price for that mistake. Not through war, but through irrelevance. The humans had expanded so rapidly that they now controlled more territory than the collective had acquired in millennia. They had formed alliances with species that the Valorians had ignored or dismissed. They had become a power that could not be controlled or contained. The galaxy that had once looked down on Earth now looked to it for leadership. On the anniversary of the Valorian withdrawal, humanity held celebrations across their growing empire. Ships gathered in orbit around Earth, representatives from 100 worlds coming to pay tribute to the planet where it had all begun. Speeches were made, memories were shared, and old veterans of the first crisis were honored for their service. Admiral Diana Ross, now retired herself, stood on the observation deck of Lunar Station Gamma and watched the lights of the celebrating fleet. She was old, her hair white, and her face lined with the marks of a long and difficult life. But her eyes were still sharp, still filled with the intelligence and determination that had made her one of humanity's greatest leaders. "We did it," she said softly, speaking to no one in particular. "We actually did it." She thought about General Chen, about the ancient ship buried beneath Antarctic ice, about the impossible journey that had brought humanity from a primitive species to a galactic power. It had taken decades of work, countless sacrifices, and more luck than anyone wanted to admit. But they had done it. The sky had darkened without warning on that first day when the Valorian ships had appeared above Earth. Humanity had looked up at shadows cast by alien vessels and felt fear for the first time since they had crawled out of their caves and discovered fire. But they had not surrendered. They had not given up. They had reached deep within themselves and found the strength to stand against the darkness. And now, 50 years later, it was humanity's shadow that fell across the galaxy. Ross smiled and turned away from the window. There was still work to be done, always more work to be done. But for now, she could allow herself a moment of satisfaction. The galactic visitors had come to Earth expecting to find children. They had found wolves instead, and the wolves had learned to build starships,